business for the 60 years that we have been here. I just have a few notes to say before our event kicks off in earnest. Please make sure that your phones are silenced. We appreciate that. If you have pre-ordered a copy of Jessie's book, that is available to pick up at our registers in the back. And if you would like to purchase one now, that is also an option. We will have a Q&A at the end, towards the end of the event. So if you have any questions, just keep them in mind until then. We will get to them. So in terms of that, in Snackable Bakes, Jessie Sheehan gives us a one-bowl, simple, fast, and easy baking recipes that have drawn in millions of views and plenty of fans. Her speedy recipes were a game-changing addition to the foodie culture when she joined the platform. Here, she takes us through in Snackable Bites, the sweet scene, with 100 recipes that optimize both your time and fun. With vibrant photography and enviable flavors, the essential book will be loved by everyone with a sweet tooth. I'd like to thank our moderator, Alison, for being with us tonight. She is a producer and writer best known for her work on Stranger Things and Better Call Saul. Alison has been nominated for multiple Emmy, PGA, and Writers Guild Awards. She holds a Master of Fine Arts from University of California, San Diego. Thank you so much for being here, Alison.
My pleasure.
And I'm very pleased to introduce the star of our event, Jessie Sheehan. In a previous life, she has been an actor and an actress and a lawyer. And from then, she pivoted to working at Baked in Brooklyn and started out as the junior baker. It was there that your love of desserts, I assume, bloomed and blossomed.
Indeed,
and brought you into the next stage of your career, where you helped in in-house recipe testing for the 2 big cookbooks, as well as contributing to cookbooks by Deb Perlman and Snoop Dogg. Jessie has written 2 previous cookbooks entitled Icebox Cakes and The Vintage Baker, and we do have The Vintage Baker available for purchase back there. And The Vintage Baker was also one of Washington Post's best cookbooks of 2018.
Yay.
And now, without further delay, please give a round of applause for our guests this evening, Alison Tatlock and Jessie Sheehan.
Hi, Honey Bun.
Hi.
So Honey Bun was an autocorrect that went wrong in a text exchange we had recently where I was trying to text Honey and it came out Honey Bun, and then I realized this is the perfect nickname for a snackable bake. So you're going to hear a lot of Honey Bun for the next hour. So Honey Bun.
Yes.
So I think all of you probably know we grew up here. This is our hometown bookstore. We're incredibly excited to be back in our hometown where we learned enthusiasm for books right here in this very space. I also worked at the Coolidge Corner Movie Theater across the street, which I think contributed to my love of cinema. And I really thought you worked at Edibles. You didn't work at Edibles?
No,
Okay.
no.
So,
The fruit store.
Raise your hand if you remember Edibles. Okay, good. It's an Edibles crown. So you worked at the fruit store where
Yes.
you did flower arrangements.
Yes, and fruit, and Rosemary was one of my customers.
Nice.
You remember you would come in and I would sell you fruit.
I feel like this is relevant. I know
Okay.
you think you were dreadful at arranging flowers, but to me, I'm going to claim anyway right now that this started a love of beauty and beautiful things and your aesthetic, which is so much part of who you are and the beautiful things that you make and as they are photographed. So anyway, I'm going to claim that it all comes back to the roots of
I love it.
Corner.
And the flowers.
Yeah, and the flowers. So the awesome thing is here, I think, is that we have been friends since 1976, and we both went on winding roads and have had multiple careers. We are both in our 3rd career right now.
I thought you were going to say in our 30s. I was like, yeah.
We're both in our 30s, but it's been a rough pandemic. No, my joke is I always want to claim that I'm in my 60s.
Right.
It's like, look, amazing. Okay, so we're not in our 30s, but we were friends when Jessie was 8 and I was 9. And as it turns out, we are both writers. I mean, very different kinds of writers, but we are both writers. And what I was struck by reading your brilliant book in the last few days is how amazing your writing is.
Oh,
It is
wow.
so charming, it is so alive, it is so you. And it cheered me up even just reading it. And I feel like we all could use a little cheer right now.
Yeah.
Hi Dougie, hi Max. Doug and Max are here, come on in. You're here just in time because I'm gonna ask Jessie to read part of her introduction so that we can hear her own voice, both literally and from the page, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. So just
Okay.
from there
Yep.
to where I put the little mark.
Okay. Why I love Snackable Bakes and why you should too. I adore Snackable Bakes due to my voracious sweet tooth and my impatient nature. I dig making and eating from scratch goodies on the regular, but I'm not super fond of kitchen projects. Croissant, layer cakes, even pie dough. I'm looking at you. I like sweets and treats with short, pantry staple ingredient lists. A snackable baker like myself isn't crazy about running to multiple grocery stores in order to make cookies. And straightforward, unambiguous instructions. I like assembling recipes using a bowl or two, a whisk, and a flexible spatula. In addition to being a snackable baker, I will also answer to one bowl baker. And I love measuring ingredients with a scale when I bake because it means less cleanup, and I won't lie, I despise cleanup. Any chance this sounds a little like you?
Yes! It sounds exactly like me, and that's partly why I wanted to hear this read out loud, and I wanted to thank you for writing this book for me. The last two books were a little bit intimidating for me, not being a particularly confident baker or chef, but this book I feel like has universal appeal and is gonna spread like wildfire as we all want to make our own snackable bakes. So I really was excited to read that and take it personally in the best way. So we will start to dive in a little bit. This is Jessie's third amazing, beautiful book, and it has this fresh angle. So I'm curious, what inspired you to go snackable with your bakes this time?
So essentially, I think what I love about this book and that I love that it came to be is that it is absolutely and 100% exactly how I like to bake. No joke. If I am asked to make someone's recipe, or like let's say I'm looking at a cookbook and someone says, could you make a recipe from this and put it on Instagram or do whatever, I will always look at every recipe until I find one where the ingredient list looks like this and the instructions look like that. Like quite literally, I don't want things that go from page to page to page, tons of different steps. I really don't want to go to the grocery store and buy ingredients. So it really 100% grew out of just like the way I like to bake. And there was definitely a time where I thought, never croissant, I'm not going to lie, but when there was a time where I thought like, oh my God, how fun. You wake up, you start a recipe, and then maybe in 72 hours you'll be eating it. Like maybe in the beginning that had like a teeny, tiny bit of appeal, but that is 100% gone. Like if I want something sweet, I want to have it like today. I don't want to have it and then like eat it in a couple of days. And that's what this book is all about, is being able to make you have this thought like, oh gosh, I need a sweet, and then like you're eating it in, I don't know, half an hour. I mean, sometimes it takes a little longer, but there are many things that you can just make and eat, and that was sort of what inspired the book.
I love it, and it has a spontaneity to it,
Yes.
which I think is so great, and it's like a spunkiness, which
Yes.
I think is one of her qualities. Okay, so what makes a bake snackable?
Okay.
And I read in the book that meringue doesn't count.
Correct.
Which I was into because that sounds hard, and I can't do things that are hard. But I did want to say, in case anyone was worried, that I can separate an egg, and you also claim in the book that that counts as easy, and I agree. So what makes it snackable?
So kind of what I just said, but a snackable bake to me is one in which there is a short ingredient list, a short list of instructions, nothing that you can't find at your corner grocery store. The instructions are easy to follow and will like 99.9% of the time not ask you to pull out any equipment. So no stand mixers, no food processors. Occasionally I might ask you to do that for something really special, like a buttercream for a cake, because cakes, I think, need buttercream. But it's easy. It's like butter and sugar and you're done. So to me it's making something that is easy and fast to make and then doesn't require you to pull out a lot of different pieces of equipment to make it happen. And again, back to this idea that baking shouldn't be like, oh my God, special occasion, it's your birthday, we're gonna bake. It should be like, oh my God, it's Tuesday, we're gonna bake. Like that's what I want, it to be like this normalized, just happens. Doesn't have to be anything special or fussy.
And do you feel like, now I'm just curious, so I'm asking off the cuff, do you
Yeah.
feel like there was a shift in you, in your life, that inspired
That's
this
a
new
really good
book?
question. I mean, I think if the shift was just like boredom and frustration with longer recipes, and like part of my job is not always just writing a cookbook, it'll be developing recipes for a media company or a magazine or something, and realizing that I would pitch a story, but then after I pitched it, I'd be like, but I want every recipe to be like the easiest possible. Like, I didn't want to do anything complicated. I didn't want to require a fancy step that required me to pull out a stand mixer. I just wanted to make it easy. So I think I started to do that in my own work for other companies, not for myself. And then I was like, why is this not like just me? I only want to do it. I need to put that into a book.
Okay, that's a perfect segue to my next question, because I am so curious / amazed by this idea of inventing a recipe. And I know we talked about it a little bit last time in 2018, but we're going to talk
4 years later.
yeah, 4 years later. So the science of it,
Yeah.
when, for instance, in the book, Jessie says, we think you need to do the dry ingredients in one bowl. I'm looking at my family, and the wet ingredients, and this is how we do it, the wet ingredients in the other bowl. And you say that you can actually put the dry ingredients in and whisk them in one at a time. How would you figure something like
Okay,
that?
so that technique is 100% something that I'm now completely obsessed with. Usually, I'll make it brief for those that are not here for the baking tips, and I know that's everybody. So, but anyway, I mean everybody's here for the tips. But anyway, usually when you make a cake, first instruction: put your flour, your leavening, and your salt in a bowl. Hi, Barbara, just saying, and whisk. And then you come over here and you whisk all your wet ingredients. And then at the end, you fold means spatula. You fold your dry into your wet. Well, I thought if you don't want to use the bowl that you just whisked all those dry ingredients, what about if you just took the wet ingredients and then you added the leavening and the salt and all of that in, and you can whisk away, and then you add the flour last. And that way you don't have to have another bowl if you're using a scale, because then you're just weighing your ingredients into one bowl. And the idea is that people want you to put the dry ingredients in a different bowl. And this is, I promise the technical stuff is going to stop in 2 seconds. But the idea is you put the dry in one bowl because you don't want to over-mix your dough. When you add your flour and your leavening and your salt, people are inclined to kind of go a little crazy trying to get it all to mix in, and that makes for a tough baked good. So if you go more slowly and do the tiny things first, the leavening and the salt, put that in the wet, then when you're adding your flour, you can be super gentle. You're not trying to incorporate that leavening anymore. It's already there. Okay, that's enough school for today.
I loved it. But, Honey Bun, are you saying that you invented this technique?
Not at all.
I think you are.
No, I mean, I saw someone do it, and I even give them credit in the beginning of the book, and I took it on as my own, because I was like, that is genius, because it allows you to only use one bowl, and it allows you to assemble things more quickly, and to be less fussy. And so it was, yeah, that was it, but that's a little different. That's like developing a technique as opposed to a recipe. And I think developing techniques more come with like years of doing this, and recipes is sort of something, you start out sort of helping people make cookbooks. That's something I've done for a long time. It's been interesting the way this book has been received, because people keep saying that, oh my God, so many tips and tricks, amazing. I'm like, really? Like that wasn't even intentional. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna share some tips and tricks. I just was like writing the way I do it, and then you realize, oh, that's cool. People think that's an interesting tip. Yay, me.
Yeah.
But it was not my intention.
Well, I credit you for inventing this incredible new technique. Everything we know is borrowed from something else.
So true.
It goes back to ancient times, I'm sure. People in ancient times figured out, just add the
Yeah, they were like,
dry
here's the
things one at a
leavening.
time. But in our modern day,
Right.
Jessie Sheehan. Okay, but let's talk about the actual recipe creation
Yes.
a little bit, because one of my favorite stories, and I referred to it last time, and we're going to talk about failure in a minute because I'm obsessed with failure just as a theme of life. I think it's very interesting.
Yes.
It doesn't get enough credit.
Right.
It's underrated. But was when you were making the brownies and tasting them and crying and throwing them in the garbage. Making the brownies,
Yeah.
tasting, crying.
That
throwing
does
them.
happen.
I get it. I feel like we all have some version of that we do in our professional lives, often involving tears for some of us, right? Where it's like it's a failure, and the frustration trying to figure it out. Is it just trial and error when you're making? Are you building off of someone else's
yes.
thing? How does it go?
Well, always. Just back to the point about everything has been invented obviously before. So I have a brownie recipe in my book. Does that mean that that's the first time anybody's ever created brownies? No. But in my brownie recipe, like, I'll use the brownies as an example. My favorite brownies come from a box. They just do. I love the taste of like Duncan Hines or Betty Crocker. I just think it's delicious. Obviously, I want to zhuzh it up a little, make it a little more chocolatey or a little more salty. But I'm starting from this idea that that's what I love. So my brownie recipe calls for some oil as well as butter, because brownie recipes that come from a box often, or almost always, have oil in them. And so I will think about something that I love that I want it to taste like, and then I will kind of deconstruct, like, okay, here's a regular old brownie recipe that's nothing like something from a box. What would I change to make it be more boxy? And
It's reverse engineering.
yes, and that's a technical term, boxy. Yeah, so I think in general, you obviously you can't, like, I have snickerdoodles in this book, and although I didn't grow up eating snickerdoodles, a lot of people did, and that's like a old-fashioned cookie that people know about. So I couldn't make a different snickerdoodle than's ever been made before, but I made a jumbo one because I like big, and I made like one that was, I put cinnamon in the batter into the dough in addition to on top of the dough. So like they're little tricks that you will kind of implement to kind of get it to taste the way you want it to taste, and hopefully while doing so, making it your own.
Yeah.
Not hopefully, while doing so, you make it your own.
I love that. So with this idea of trial and error, of failure, of taking risks, with all of that in mind, and with the winding journeys that you and I have had to get to the career place where we are now, what was the most frustrating part of this? Was there a recipe that just drove you crazy?
Yeah. I mean, I think here's the problem with me. I'm the person who starts a book, hates it, and can't not read it, because I started it, right? I gotta keep going. So I can't stop. So what will happen to me when you write a book, or at least the way I do it, is my first step is I write a table of contents. I don't even have any of the recipes. I'm just like, okay, I think like an almond jam whoopie pie sounds good. It'll be like an almond whoopie pie, and the inside will be jam. Okay, put that on the list. I don't know how I'm gonna make that. I just come up with a table of contents. Then you show it to your editor, you get it approved, and then you start writing. So a lot of people would say, well, if I do like a recipe writers will say, if I do it 3 times and it's not working, I'm done. It's time to move on. No, you're like, you don't have, like, life is too short. I'm the opposite. I'm like, life is too short not to finish this. I have to finish this. I have to make it work. So there's an almond, they're called almond jam sandwich cookies, but really they were supposed to be whoopie pies. But every friggin' time I made them, they did not work. And so they finally had to become sandwich. But then I have a tester who was helping me on this book, somebody that I worked with from a really long time, like an old friend, and also someone with like a way more sophisticated palate than mine, which is exactly what you want if you are me. Because I love everything, and I love everything to be really sweet, and Stephanie was great at being like, no, too sweet. So she would pull me back. So anyway, that was a quick aside, but she's fabulous. But she said, she said, well, maybe we don't call them, because we weren't, whoopie pies can be kind of round. I wanted them to be round, and they kept being flat. She said, why don't we call them sandwich cookies? I was like, yes, we'll call them sandwich cookies. So that was one thing we changed in the process. But the other thing we changed is we just had to almost rework the whole recipe to get it to work. And I had to write, for a variety of reasons, I had to write this book in 1 year. Like, I literally signed the contract for this book last May. That is unheard of in the world of cookbooks. They take 2 years to make at the least. So this book had to be written very quickly, and all of the recipes were developed last summer. So that was even more reason for me to give up on the whoopie pies. But I couldn't let it go, and we eventually figured it out, and she helped me, and she was, I'm going to say it again, she was amazing. And I got the recipe to work. But that's just an example of like, arguably I should have just said, okay, that doesn't work. We're going to pick a different thing. And I was like, no, there will be an almond jam cookie in my book. That's the last thing I do.
That's what they were going to be called, almond jam cookies. No. Well, you're tenacious.
Yes, I guess.
That's a good quality. So what I love about that story is that the book itself is a snackable bake. Like it had to move quickly. It had
Yes,
to be
oh,
done
I love
quickly.
that.
So it's
Honey,
like
I'm gonna start using
meta.
that. I mean, honey bun.
All right, wow, there's a lot there to unpack because I'm curious about your creative process. And I know that the creative process, one could argue, is like a little bit mystical sometimes. It's hard to put your finger on inspiration.
Right.
But when you say you write the table of contents and you're like, I will have an almond,
Yeah.
what is happening?
So it's yeah. It is
It's like
weird.
the gods of baking.
I think
or-
what happens is, so this is also interesting. In the book, and this was my editor, I thought this was genius. The chapters are divided by flavor. So there's a fruit chapter, a vanilla chapter, a chocolate chapter, spicy, sweet and salty, herby. They have much cuter names than that, don't worry. I don't want you to be like, I forget, I'm not even buying the book. That did not sound good.
Herby sounds bad.
Who wants herby? But anyway, originally it was kind of broken up like a regular cookbook. So it was like cookies, candy, cake, morning goodies. And in so doing, I would sort of look at my empty Word doc that just said like cakes and think about the flavor combos that I love. I'm obsessed with Hostess snack cakes that I grew up eating, thanks to these two lovely people in the front row. And so I'm obsessed with chocolate and marshmallow. It's like a Suzy Q, it's like a devil dog. All of that is like my everything. So there had to be, for me, a chocolate cake with a marshmallow frosting in this book, because that's like a flavor of cake that I love. But I thought, and this is going to sound gross, don't freak out, but there is chocolate cake can be made amazingly simple and amazingly deliciously. Amazingly delicious or amazing deliciously. I'm having trouble with my adverbs right now, but you put mayonnaise in the cake batter. I know, look at that guy's face. I'm sorry. You put mayonnaise in the chocolate cake batter instead of the eggs and the fat.
It's not very Jewish.
And it makes for this unbelievably moist cake. It takes out ingredients, so it's an easier way to bake. It's an old-fashioned thing, a chocolate mayonnaise cake. And I actually originally got the recipe from Grandma, from this guy's mom.
Nice, from Grandma Hyla.
Yeah, from Grandma Honey Bun. And so it's like I knew I wanted chocolate marshmallow, but then I was like, well, other people have done chocolate marshmallow, and I was like, oh, mayonnaise cake. So it's literally called Shh, Don't Tell Secret Ingredient Chocolate Cake, because I know people will be like, what? But that's an example of me, a flavor that I love. So if I get to write my own book, I'm gonna like put in the kind of flavors that I love, like chocolate and marshmallow, or I'm trying to think of another good example, like the cookie chapter. Like, I'm not really a snickerdoodle person. I'm not gonna lie. I think I made snickerdoodles once in my life, but I was like looking at my cookie table of contents, and I was like, everybody loves this thing called a snickerdoodle. Maybe I'll give it a try. And again, I knew I like a chewy cookie, so I made sure my snickerdoodle tasted chewy. I like, I do like sweet, but I like strong flavors, so I like added a lot of cinnamon to my snickerdoodle. And then like my tester was like, oh my god, I'm so glad you're doing a snickerdoodle recipe because I love snickerdoodles, and so the cookie is called Stephanie's Snickerdoodle. So like that, that's, I would say it mostly comes from in my head, either needing to fill the space, literally, like, oh god, I better put a snickerdoodle in, or being much more passionate, like chocolate marshmallow. So it runs the gamut.
Gosh, I have so many questions and comments. First of all, I'm jealous of Stephanie. She has a cookie named after her. She has such a great palate. But I'm actually interested in this idea for having a brilliant palate.
Yes.
I think partly because my husband works in the wine business.
And he does as
all
well.
about the palate. He
Yeah.
has an amazing palate.
Yes.
He has, an amazing nose and all of that. So when you apply palate to this, it's like a sensitivity to spice.
Well, it's also like, this is really embarrassing, but like I'm not the person, like somebody gives me a bite of something and they're like, what's that herb in there? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I try to pretend I know, but I really don't know. I'm just not good at that. Like if somebody then says, oh, it's oregano, I'd be like, yeah. But I could never come up with that. So I think Stephanie is somebody who can taste something and recognize exactly what's in it, but also be able to say, I think maybe if there was a little more fat in here, it would like cut the It would make it a little fluffier if it's like something technical, or it would make it a little. I kind of know about moisture, so she wouldn't tell me something needed to be more moist because I think I would understand that. But she'll be able to. She can recognize when something's not working and make suggestions on how it could work. Sometimes when I can't. And what I meant more is that because I feel like everything I make is so sweet and like that's just my jam. And
So
that's
sweet.
right. And that's not everyone's favorite thing. Stephanie was just great at being able to say, like I'd say, like I kind of like it's a chocolate malted buttercream. It's really good, but like, oh no, it was the banana cake. So the one recipe is a banana snacking cake with a chocolate malted cream cheese frosting, and I loved it. But I was like, I wonder if the cake could be even sweeter. And Stephanie was like, no. So she was good at stuff like that, where I might have said, I think we could put in more sugar. And she was like, don't do that.
She restrains you.
Yes, she does. She pulls me back. And then the desserts taste more elevated because it's not just sugar.
I love the idea that in a way it kind of starts with your own craving. Like you look
Yes.
into yourself and you ask, what do I crave?
Yeah.
What would please me?
Yeah.
And that's like the initial inspiration.
And it's also, that's what was exciting about writing this book as opposed to my other two books, because those books were kind of hamstring, not in a bad way, my fault, but one was icebox cakes, and they were my editor at the time wanted them all to be homemade. So you could come up with the flavors of the icebox cakes based on what flavors you like, but they were all going to be icebox cakes. So, and then with the Vintage Baker, that's a book based on old-fashioned recipes from like little old-fashioned advertising pamphlets that you would buy with a bag of flour, and it would give you 10 recipes to use with the flour. So it was wonderfully fun to do all the research and come up with the recipes, but I had to do what was in the pamphlet.
Mm-hmm.
This was super cool because I was like, I like Nestle Crunch. It's one of my fave candy bars. I'm making a Nestle Crunch bark, which is like Rice Krispies and chocolate, and it is so delicious, and it takes like 4 seconds, and it's in the book. So consider buying, please.
Oh my gosh. So just a slight side note, tangent about the word snickerdoodle, which always makes me giggle.
Yeah.
Because when my daughter was in preschool, the rabbits at the preschool were named Snickerdoodle and S'more, and she would often report to us Snickerdoodle was on top of S'more today. So they were getting busy, I guess. Okay, so we talked about what was frustrating, and we talked about your inspiration.
Yep.
Do you have a thought about what was the most fun, like surprising in a fun way,
Yeah.
or celebratory? Or...
Well, I don't know if you feel this way as a writer, but sometimes it's when you're writing, at least for me, I always feel, oh God, I mean, and you kind of
Like drudgery.
Drudgery, and like I basically I developed all the recipes in like June and July, and then in August I spent the month writing, which for a cookbook it's not. You know, it's like a lot of stuff in the beginning of the book that tells you what the book's about, and then it's like a head note over every recipe that tells you what the recipe is. And sometimes I find it very it feels good when I then go back and read it later, and I'm like, oh, nice job, honey, bunny. Like I you know, you don't realize it when you're doing it, but then you're kind of proud of yourself later. So I think I definitely had that feeling, which felt good.
About the whole thing or something in particular?
Just the writing piece of the
Yes.
book. But I would say the most fun, hands down, was the photo shoot, which was just seeing, when I'd seen everything come to life, because like I had made it several times, my tester Stephanie had made it several times, but then when we actually shot the book, we did it in 2 weeks, and we wanted, what I think it's, I don't know about you cookbook peeps out there, but I really love it when a recipe has a photograph. And if it doesn't have a photograph, I'm not going to make it. And a lot of people, or I might, but a lot of people are like, what? No picture? I can't do this. So I really want, so there are 100 photos because there are 100 recipes. I really wanted people to be able to see everything. So we shot the book over 2 weeks in the beginning of September, and it was just, I had this incredible, very green team in the sense that none of them had ever worked on a cookbook themselves. I mean, they'd worked as assistants on cookbooks, but they'd never been the bosses of them, the boss peeps. And I think because of that, they were so enthusiastic and awesome about it. They gave it everything they had. Not that they wouldn't have anyway, because it was their first time. And it was just amazing to see the rest. I won't lie. It was amazing to see them work, because even though that sounds dumb, like if you didn't know your recipes were working by then, you're in real trouble. But like it felt so good for like a perfect stranger to make the snickerdoodle and have it look beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. So that moment of like truth, as it were, felt really good.
That's so cool. So they were making them and then photographing. So I'm going to compare that to the feeling kind of like being on set when you see the script that you wrote being
Yes.
produced, and you're like, oh my god, it's happening. It's not always fun,
Yes.
but it is incredibly gratifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe even when you watch it on TV or no,
Yeah.
by then.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully, yes. All right, that is very insightful, or I find that interesting, and it also makes me wonder about your TikTok presence. So I don't know
Yeah.
if any.
Yeah,
of
I'm
you
not sure how
have
many
been following
TikTokers are
Jessie.
that.
We got some TikTokers, but it's a whole new realm
Yes.
for you, and I think it's born partly out of pandemic blues, right? Like a way
100%.
so also what you're saying about the photo shoot
Yeah.
makes me think about how hungry we have been to be together.
Yes.
And I wonder if there was just something so gratifying about having an real life experience with other artists where you were making something together,
Yes.
not just alone.
100%. But also back to failure, which I also connect with fraud because they both begin with F.
Mm-hmm.
Having a bit of a fraud complex, as I think many of us do.
Yeah.
It was also like the like seeing people be like just watching these people make my recipes and then photograph them, make them look so beautiful and so good, and like then people would taste them like this is so good. It was like a little bit. It's still there. Don't worry. But a little bit of the fraudiness was kind of lifted, and I thought like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm good at this. Like, and I'm not because literally that would be what I would think. Like, oh,
I totally get that, and I identify with it, and I wonder if it's partly also from starting late.
yes.
I feel like because we started late,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a feeling sometimes of like, was I meant to do this? Do I
Right.
qualify?
Right.
Was I, I want that
Yeah.
whole feeling.
Yeah.
Like a little late to the party.
Yeah.
Which I think is also exciting,
Me too.
but it also maybe creates insecurity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Like we didn't know right away. This is the thing.
No.
Right. Okay. So, all right, but you were going, I think, to tell us a little bit about the TikTok.
Oh right. So
presence.
TikTok is, TikTok. I think well, I'll just tell you what TikTok is, just in case. So TikTok is just another social media platform like Instagram or like Twitter, but not. It's more like Instagram because it's videos, and it's been around for a while. But kind of in March of 2020, when everybody was home because of the pandemic, TikTok started to kind of pick up steam. I think teenagers had, or at least mine had always, well, not my older one, but my younger one, always on TikTok. But it definitely things started to change during the pandemic, and like old people like me ended up on the platform. And it was a little crazy, but it was kind of awesome because not that many of them. So I would make these videos of me acting a little crazy on this platform for children, because TikTok is literally for children, a little less so now. Now it's kind of for everyone, but it was very much a kid's platform. And my videos would go viral because people were like, what is that? And then literally the comments would be like, Grandma, what are you doing? Or like, Auntie, relax. Like they literally, and then the jokes, like they just thought I looked so old, they couldn't believe what I was doing, they wanted to know where my grandchildren were. So I kind of exploded a bit on the platform in the beginning because it was such a novelty to see someone like my age doing what I was doing, which was really just making recipes, but I was doing it in this like kind of crazy way.
I mean, crazy, I don't know, but it's incredibly cheerful. I mean, for me, I always feel like there's a smiling, beautiful face. It was telling me something really fun. And more recently, I've noticed that you're doing like a hi peeps. So today I'm going to tell you, and like she's telling us a secret. It's a secret, and I get so excited because I want to hear what the secret is. So I feel like there's been a little shift.
Yes.
Was that conscious?
Well, from the beginning of TikTok, the videos I'm referring to that were on TikTok where I went like viral were really crazy. I was basically
well, it was like
screaming. Yeah. Now I'm much more low key. I'm more like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more intimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Is it fun? Do you feel oppressed by it?
totally oppressed.
Uh-huh. Is it fun at all?
It's only fun, and this is why it's such a sickness. It's only like, oh my god, everyone loves my video. Look how many likes. Look how many. So it's. I wish I could tell you that it's so fun to make.
No, you don't have to. I want
so
honesty.
fun to post
No,
them.
if it's
but
horrible,
it's not.
tell us.
It's only fun when you're like, oh my god, it went viral.
I thought maybe there might be like that therapy thing of act as if, like,
Yeah.
but then I have to, So
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, like, there's a shift in me. But
Yeah, I would say no. I
Okay.
would say Yeah. I would say
Okay, not recommended. Watch them, but don't try for yourself, I guess. Okay, cool.
But it was, I mean, just to talk professionally,
Yeah.
it was huge for me because I have over 200,000 followers on TikTok. I mean, but it actually, and I'm not even saying that to be like, look at me, because actually I've like gotten like zero, I shouldn't even be saying this, so don't tell. But I
My
might,
live stream.
yeah, oh, shoot. But you know, it's not, my following isn't really growing the way it once was. So even though that sounds great, I wish that like I was at 500, you know, you want to keep moving up. And I would say I'm a little bit like this, but I should never have said that. Somebody has to explain to me what you do when you're doing a public speaking thing. You should not be
It
saying
sounds like a
things.
lot to us, A. And B, maybe this will inspire people,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
to up your numbers.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this group?
Yeah. I mean, if people think you're a grandma on Facebook,
I know.
then
They really do.
maybe not.
Like, oh, grandma, go back to bed. I'd be like,
They would actually say
yeah, and
that.
I would respond to every comment. Like, I'm not a grandma. I'm not your aunt. I have kids. I'm a mom.
I think it's funny. It reminds me a little bit of how John Oliver, you know, likes to read meme tweets about him.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this could be part
Yes.
of your brand because you're so awesome and adorable and stylish. Like the idea of saying "Grandma, go back to bed" on the internet just seems very funny to me.
I thought it was kind of hilarious.
Yeah. And I also, I just want to backtrack for a moment because you were talking about the vintage baker. But that's it was the last time we chatted was
Yes.
about the vintage baker,
Totally.
right? And there were all these beautiful old-fashioned recipes, and you kind of you steeped in the past, and this feels so. Right, so
Yeah.
like present,
Yeah.
and it has a hitness to it, which I associate with you.
Yeah,
So I wonder if that's partly why this feels so authentic to you,
I would say so.
because you are cutting edge.
I feel like, thank you, honey. I think, it's the pink jumpsuit.
It's a honey bun.
I feel like that's partly because the vintage baker, I do love those booklets and I do love old fashioned recipes, but I did feel, I mean, I already said it, but a little hamstrung, like I had to fit every recipe into this formula that I created for myself of recipes coming from pamphlets and being zhuzhed up for the 21st century baker, whereas this, I just get to make every single thing I love.
And let's go back even further because your first book, Icebox Cakes, is also it's like an old-fashioned tradition.
Totally.
So it's an interesting journey.
Well, one thing I would say about this book is a lot of the recipes are still inspired by old recipes in the sense of I just like comfort food and I like old school desserts and big layer cakes and cookies and fluffy buttercream. So even if it's a very contemporary looking book, which I wanted, I didn't really want something that was super kind of like nostalgic. I mean, it's nostalgic in a way, but I didn't want the look of it to give you like, oh, soft, oh, warm and cozy. I wanted it to be a little more fun than that. But really, the recipes are all about things I love, like a raspberry pie that I hope you're putting lots of ice cream on, and like, you know, yummy muffins and buns to, you know, morning buns and things that to me are just like kind of classics.
Perfect segue. So in case you can't tell, Jessie did not know the questions ahead of time. So there's an improvisational jazz element here. So I'm gonna ask you to read the description of one of these amazing recipes right now. It's called Matt's Blueberry Galette
Yes.
with easiest ever crust. Who's Matt?
Okay.
Tell us about it.
So, Matt is the uncle of 3 of the people in this room, and because 3 of my nieces are here, but Matt is my husband, and I named a recipe in my book, one for my son Jack, one for my son Oliver, and one for Matt. That was my little, and then one for Stephanie. Sorry.
Whatever. I'm looking forward to the next book.
Yeah. Then we call it Alison's Bakes.
Like Al's dessert that tastes like breakfast.
So I wrote, my husband digs blueberries, I dig him, and we both dig this galette, but for different reasons. He loves it because it is exceptionally delicious, and I love it because it is so darn easy to assemble. Get this. The easiest ever crust here is made with melted butter. Yep, you heard that right. Using it in a pie crust rather than very cold butter means that there are no keeping your butter cold issues and no resting and chilling and freezing and almost no leaking. Yes, it will blow your mind, and yes, you should stop reading right now and go whip up this simple, non-fussy beauty for the blueberry lover in your life.
Yay.
I love that.
And can I just say one thing? I just want to show you this. A galette. I'm sure you know. Apologies if you do not. But a galette is just basically you're rolling out pie dough, putting your fruit in the middle, and then just pushing up the sides. So it's like a crostata. So it's a super easy peasy canapes. No, only kidding.
It's so beautiful. All right, cool. So this struck me because I love the description. I like hearing you say the word dig over and over again.
Thanks, Jazzy.
Can you tell us, though, if you have a favorite? I know it's probably hard to choose between, like, choose your favorite baby. But
It is.
Just
A random. All right, let me look at.
yeah.
I'm gonna pull out my strawberry sheet cake because I'm obsessed with. I gotta just find it. I'm obsessed.
She's looking in her own table of.
Oh yeah. No, can I just tell you that I literally will like have a job and they'll be like, make an apple cake. This just happened to me, and I was like, okay, shoot, apple cake. And then I'm like after like an hour of research, I'm like, just a minute, I have an apple cake. Like I don't even. That may say more about my memory than anything else. But actually, a lot of recipe developers feel that way. Like you forget that you've written it. But anyway. This is a strawberry sheet cake, and I love sheet cakes and snacking cakes. A sheet cake is like this. It's a cake in like a 13 by 9 by 2 inch pan, like some people call them a brownie pan. And then a snacking cake is like like a square pan, either 8 inches or 9 inches. I love both of these kinds of cakes because they're one layer, they're super simple. I like to put frosting on them, but you can glaze them, you can just like sift powdered sugar on them. They're the easiest they're the easiest vehicle in my mind to get cake into your body, which is like a very important thing to do. This particular recipe I also love because, like all snacking and sheet cakes and like all the recipes in the book, it's just wildly, wildly easy, but like very beautiful because after you make your cake batter, which is like a simple oil-based batter, oil is like my favorite thing to put in cakes. And I like melted butter too, but oil is brilliant because it is not solid at room temperature, so your cake stays unbelievably moist for like a really very long time. And what you do with this cake is you make this simple oil-based batter, so you have this really rich, delicious, I'm very vanilla forward, so there's lots of vanilla in there. And then you just take sliced strawberries and sprinkle them on top, but it does that really cool thing where they kind of get puckered into the top of the cake. I don't know, it's like really beautiful, but no frosting, no nothing. I like sugar in the raw, which is like turbinado sugar. It's like a trick, kind of, because it makes it look like it's super fancy when all you did was sprinkle some sugar on top. But it has the ability to look a lot fancier than it actually is.
Nice. So are we okay? We're gonna move to Q&A in a couple minutes, but all right. So I was thinking a lot about you in the context of sweets.
Yes.
And you're right, sweet. You're right. Now be a baker.
Oh, thank you.
Good choice.
Thank you.
No, I have such vivid memories from our childhood
Yes.
and our friendship, starting with Halloween in 1976 when we actually became friends,
Yes.
and your favorite treats and your favorite candies.
Yes.
All of these things were so important to you,
They were.
and you loved them with a passion
Yes.
that was very intense. I mean, kids love sugar,
It's
but I
all
felt
true.
you really appreciated them
It's all
in a
true.
deep way, and I can remember actually watching you eat them and thinking, like, she loves this Reese's peanut butter cup so much, and I need to know what my favorite is too, and it's really important to know what your favorite
that's
is, and
so
all these
funny.
things came from you, and the rituals that we
Yeah.
had. I was thinking about how we would come home after school and we would have at my house Bordeaux cookies and we would dip them in milk and we would watch General Hospital and we would have devil dogs, and it's part of the ritual of friendship.
Yeah.
And you understand that it's not just the drug of sugar that kids are addicted to. I think it is like it's like the child version of, smoking outside or something. It's like a ritual of friendship that
Yeah.
is deeply bonding. So I was thinking about that with a real appreciation for like the beauty and the depth of it. And it made me wonder, I feel like you answered this question a little bit already with the photo shoot.
Yeah.
But since we've all been craving community so
Yeah.
much and craving connection during this time of isolation as we come back together, are there things that you associate with these snackable bakes or with this process that you feel like was a moment of community? And maybe it's not fair because you told us about the photo shoot already.
No,
But
that's
it could be
okay.
a family or
Yeah, I mean, was, just developing some of these recipes. Like one of the recipes is an enormous Reese's peanut butter cup. You make it in a 10-inch tart pan. I have to show you the picture. It's really.
And this was your favorite.
This
I know you like the Nestle's Crunch too.
No.
But this was
Reese's,
really the favorite.
Reese's peanut butter cups are 100% my favorite. See, I don't even know the book. I'm like, what chapter? But I know it's in the. I know it's in the nut chapter.
Nuts for nuts.
Nuts for nuts. See, I told you they have like cutie pie little names. But like making this and feeding this to people, like some of the people I'm related to, like my son, who's obsessed with Reese's peanut butter cups, it's like heaven. Because like that's something, I mean, Al's right, like that is my favorite thing to come out of the Halloween bag. Allison was able to save the candy until Easter. She really could, because she just wasn't. Mine was done. I don't know, November 2nd. And when my kids were little, and you got to put them to sleep, after they were all sugar high, I would then go into their bags and eat all of their Reese's peanut butter cups. So I don't even know how they know to love them, because they literally never got to eat them. But something like that to me is like. I love that candy. I made a huge one, which means everybody gets a piece. You get to share it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. You do have to love a Reese's peanut butter cup to love it. But if you do, then there will be community.
I love that. That's incredible. Okay, so we're going to talk for a second about the dedication, and then we'll take a few questions from all of you. So it's this very beautiful dedication. Do you want to read it?
Yes. And two of the people I'm referring to are in the front row. To my parents, for putting dessert on the table every night of the week, aka for raising me right, and to Matt, who's not here, but I did give him a galette, so I don't know why he didn't show up today, and to Matt for just about everything else.
Nice. I love that. And we're grateful to our families for the sweetness, both literal and metaphorical, and to all of you for joining us tonight. It's so meaningful to us. So thank you. We will take some questions. We have a lovely moderator here.
Oh, hello, Cody.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, honey.
Am I okay? That's good.
Yeah.
I have a question about what snackable bake would you recommend that pairs nicely with a nice Whispering Angel or a rosé? I saw the strawberry snacking cake. I thought that might be good. Do you have any other that you recommend?
I would say definitely a strawberry. Definitely a strawberry sheet cake.
Yeah.
I might say the vanilla scones might be nice for like a 4
A nice
p.m.
breakfast wine.
I was thinking like afternoon tea,
Okay.
like 4 p.m. A little stag ange, a little scone. I think they would go beautifully together.
I've never heard the term breakfast wine. I really like
I think she made it up.
No.
It's very post-pandemic.
Brunch wine.
Thank you.
Other questions?
How do you stay so thin?
Oh, Peloton. And also, I'm very disciplined. Like I will. If this is when Alison was referring to me making something and crying, we've talked about that 4 years ago when we were here. But if I'm recipe developing and something works, I'm amazing. I take one bite, I'm like, oh good, it's delicious, and then I'm done. If something does not work, I can't stop eating it because I'm so mad. I'm trying to figure out why it's not good. I keep shoving it in my face, like I can't control myself. So I guess I'm thin because most of the recipes work. So I'm good at just saying, okay, that was good, and I'm going to put that away and move on. And I'm just I'm a pretty healthy person, even though I do love sugar.
That is so interesting that you have to keep trying it, of course. When you're eating the failure, but then you...
Yeah, but I think it's also you just get freaky
It's
in your
compulsive.
head. Yes, and you're just like mad.
Max has a question. Hi, Max.
Do you get paid for being a taste tester?
Do you get paid for being? That's such
It's a good question.
So I don't pay my own children. I pay them in sweets because it's funny, my younger son has a really good, he also has a very good palate. He'll often say that's too sweet. So if Jack likes something, then I know it's really good and maybe I'll pay him by I don't know how I would pay him, let him stay out an hour later that night. But in general, I do not pay him, but he is a very good taste tester. And I do pay the people who actually make the recipes, testing them for me in that way. but
I
not the
think
tasting.
Max might be offering his services. Was it, yeah?
Do you live in Are you want to live with me in Brooklyn? Maybe.
Maybe. It seems like a pretty good deal.
What's your favorite ice cream?
Oh, such a good question.
Used to be mint chocolate chip.
That's true. From Baskin Robbins, which I don't think it doesn't exist in Coolidge Corner
31
anymore.
food.
No, but it's green mint chip ice cream with really tiny little chocolate. Like it's not. I don't like mint chip when it has like big chunks. I like it when it's tiny chunks.
Flex.
Yeah.
Rosemary?
I want to thank you for remembering Brigham's peppermint stick ice cream.
Yes.
Ah.
But I also want to ask, did you grow up learning to cook in your mother's kitchen?
I did not. I did not. But you know, in my mom's defense, or my dad's, we weren't a big. I mean, obviously dinner was put on the table and desserts were pulled from the freezer in the cookie container, the cookie jar. But I didn't even want to, Rosemary. I wanted to eat sweets, but it's not like I wished that there was someone there to teach me how to bake, because I had absolutely no interest in baking. And that came many, many years later. So Al's right, from a very young age, like going to Alison's house, there were all a Pepperidge Farm up the wazoo. We were eating Milanos. We were eating at my
Honey, the
house.
coconut cream cake.
Sarah Lee, the pound cake. Sorry, I'm screaming. Sarah Lee, Catherine by the Sarah Lee pound cake. I mean, at my house we did Chips Ahoy, and then we did have the Hostess stuff, which I loved. But Al's house was like it was a different vibe. So I always loved all the sweets, but no one was teaching me how to make them, nor did I want them to. My dad's mom was an incredible baker, and I have a lot of her recipes. But when I would visit her when I was little, I just wanted to eat them. I was never like, Grandma, can I come in the kitchen? Never.
My mother always used to say that no kitchen is big enough for two women.
Yeah. There you go.
That's funny. I feel like I have to say a defense of the Gavelberg dinner table, which always had you guys had
Yes.
amazing food on that dinner table.
Yeah.
I don't know who cooked it or where it came from, but I remember eating dinner over
That's
there.
nice.
Yeah.
You can say no.
Okay.
Oh.
But I am wondering if you could do 10, 15 seconds of crazy TikTok, Grandma, or if not, if Allie can imitate it.
I'll do it, but get ready. Basically, I can't be near a microphone. But basically, I would do like, and again, this is March 2020. Okay, we were all off our rocker, but I would like, Peeps, today we're gonna make chocolate chip cookies.
Anya, you have to imagine jump cuts. It was like a series of jump cuts. So it's like cut, with like a great enthusiasm and like the face going in and out in a very
They were
intense.
probably wondering what was going into the cookies.
Yeah, exactly. No, that would be one of the comments. Like, Grandma, what are you smoking? I'm not a grandma and I don't smoke.
It's so sad when we've just missed middle-aged mom phase. What's wrong with that?
No, literally, that's how old I look to their.
Thank you.
What do you think about everything other than sleep?
She's a good cook. Jesse's a very
Like food, did you say, what do I think?
Like cooking and serving dinner.
savory.
Oh, I love a dinner party, like, because I like to plan it and I like to think about what all the courses are gonna be and what the dessert's gonna be, and I love all of that, as long as I can make it all ahead, because I hate being the hostess who's like, now I'm gonna leave the table and make the sauce, now I'm gonna leave the table and make the whipped cream. I hate that. So I do love a dinner party, but and luckily none of them are here, I hate cooking for my family. I just do. I just want to eat takeout every night. Or my husband is a great cook. I love it when Matt cooks. But I am not like, oh, it's 5. Can't wait to look in the fridge and see what dinner is going to be. I know people think it's meditative. They're like, drink a glass of wine and just like they love it. That is not me.
You are a very good cook, though. She's not, I mean, just a baker. That sounds dismissive of
Well, that
baking.
was
But she's
just
a
one of the
good big
questions.
cook in addition to being a baker.
I mean, I love food, but yeah.
Jennifer.
So riffing off on this question, so I'm curious a little bit how you had the instinct to be crazy at TikTok, but also
Yeah.
now, just given the social media and just sort of broadening it out to like marketing,
Yeah.
like marketing is half of what you do,
Yes.
right? So how do you feel looking ahead as you look back and then look head
Yeah.
about how to market cookbooks and books at all.
It's
physical
such a,
books.
I mean, to me, it's such a good question because I think about it all the time. But like the TikTok thing literally came about because like a week before the pandemic, when things were just starting to be a little weird in New York, this company that I was working for said, we've started a TikTok channel, will you come and make some videos with us? And I just went and I literally said to my kids, like, kids, I'm about to go do some talk ticks. And I got to the studio and I was like, I've never seen TikTok. And they were like, I said, I don't know what to do. They said, just talk fast. So I made my Rice Krispie treats, which are there for everyone. I made Rice Krispie treats and I was like, okay, now we get the swing and the now we get the marshmallows. I was just talking fast. And then I kind of just never stopped talking that way because that seemed to be what people wanted to see. And then the marketing and the social media, it's awful. I mean, I hate it so much. You have to do it all the time. And promoting this book, I keep mentioning, like 4 years ago, Al and I were here, beautiful, exciting, new cookbook, but it was like a different world. It was like, it was enough to just come and do a great book talk and go to some cool places and meet people and talk about your book and maybe be on TV and talk about your book. But now it's like a constant grind of putting up pictures on Instagram and my Instagram goes to my Twitter and it goes to Facebook. So I'm constantly on all those platforms being, hey, guess what? I just walked down the street.
Right.
And then I ate a cookie. Like, it's so ridiculous what you have to do and embarrassing. I mean, I don't think mine's super embarrassing, but there is so much work that is all about that. And I was just saying to Al, then you feel bad about yourself because you're watching it all the time and you're seeing other people have things and get things that you want. And I'm literally as bad as my children. I have a 17 and 18-year-old. I mean, like, they might be on their phone a little bit more, but I'm as like, you know, oh God, I can't believe that. Oh, yay me. It's like, meow.
Working on solutions.
Yes.
Hard feeling.
Mike.
Yeah, so hearing you talk about how you deconstruct your food, about what worked and what, I'm blown away because
Aw.
I'm so technical and I'm almost lost. But thinking about you, knowing you from when you were growing up,
Yeah.
I would never have said,
No.
"Whoa, this woman's
No.
going to be."
No.
So how
Agreed.
did that come about?
It's
and
such a
you're
good
so
question.
genuine about
Yeah,
it.
Mike is my cousin. He's my dad's cousin, but he's like my cousin, so I call him my cousin. And he's right. I mean, back to my grandmother making all this delicious stuff in her tiny little galley kitchen. I never walked in, was like, Grandma, what are you doing? I was like, where's the lemon velvet cake? I just wanted to eat it. I didn't even want to help. I mean, I was an actress, then I was a lawyer, then I was a stay-at-home mom, and I think it was during that period of time with my little kids where I was getting, I don't know, a little bit more. I always I had the sweet tooth. I was always trying to satisfy it, and so during that period, just was kind of a little bit more drawn to actually making the things that would satisfy the sweet tooth as opposed to just buying them. But I started to play around a little bit with baking, so that would have been 16 years ago, 16 and a half years ago. And then a friend of mine said, I mean, if you're enjoying doing that, like, why don't you go, like, offer up your services to a bakery? So I went into a bakery in my neighborhood in Brooklyn called Baked and just said, like, I'll work for free. I just want to learn what you guys do. Can I be an apprentice or an intern? They thought I was insane and like who does that? I'm like a mom, like, hey, hi. And they asked me to write a note to like the head baker to ask about the job, and I had like 5,000 exclamation points. I was like too enthusiastic and too jolly. I needed to be like a little more Brooklyn cool. And then I came back maybe a week later and like said sorry for the exclamation points. I'm excited for the job, but forget the punctuation. And they took me on, and that ended up being a great kind of like a great jumping off place for me because the guys who owned the bakery started writing cookbooks, and then I realized that's what I really love. So I went from like kind of doing production-y stuff, like making all the cakes for the bakery, to actually helping those guys write their cookbooks. And I think that kind of spoke to me, probably spoke to the lawyer in me or the precise thinker in me. And that's where I realized, like, oh, I like this part where you get to write a lot and you get to put things, into these books, and it's not just like, I don't want to be a pastry chef in a restaurant, or I don't want to be I don't want my own bakery. I like this part of it.
No,
I've
but
been- go
what I
ahead.
meant was, you're discussing and thinking of how things taste and what works. It's so technical.
Yeah,
So where did that come
that
from?
comes just once you do it over and over again, and you're like somebody, maybe in the beginning, easy stuff, like somebody would have said, like if I was working with someone on a cookbook and they would have said, we need a chocolate cake in the book, but I want it to be like super moist, and I wanted to have only 7 ingredients, like, and slowly you're kind of trying to
I think
figure
you're
that.
special. Come on.
She is special for sure. And I thought about this question a lot too, like these 3 careers and talents that feel very distinct, and how do they connect? And that, not all bakers are as good in this forum as this person. Not all bakers can get on TikTok and do this performative thing. So if you take someone who is a talented actor, which Jessie was, and a very smart lawyer, which she was, and obsessed with sweets from a very young age, which she was, and you find now a person who makes these incredible sweets, has the performative ability and life energy to present them with incredible pizzazz and the intelligence to write about them so specifically, and has the sort of like the more scientific legal mind part of it. It kind of tracks. So, one more. Okay, one more.
I want it. Can we do 2 so Nancy gets one too? Okay, thank you. Michelle.
So actually following up to that, I was thinking about the fact that when I've seen the TV shows that you've been on, you have such a presence on those shows, and I was thinking that it has a lot to do with your acting background and your
Yes.
lawyering background.
Yes.
Because you are so articulate and you're so charming.
Aw.
And that's just, it comes across, and it's like you are as charming, if not more, than the hosts who are professionals. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're just absolutely keeping up with these people.
Thank
And
you.
they're just like looking at you like, oh my god, look
Ooh,
who's
cooking
this
show,
person.
Jessie, are you gonna have a
It's
show?
remarkable.
I wish. Nancy.
I just have a comment rather than a question, which is through the last 3 years, every time I go on Instagram, I get life, joy, happiness, optimism, and I think you've helped a lot of people through a lot of tough times.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you.
Perfect way to end. Thanks, everybody. You're gonna sign some books?
Yes.
She's gonna sign some books.